Video games come in all shapes and sizes, from compelling story games like Red Dead Redemption, tactical ones like the Final Fantasy series, or even the absolute mess of Sonic 06. But despite some of these genres not being remotely similar, at some point playing these games, you must have realized some similar themes in between them, and the same can be said for regular everyday media, like the lazy old mentor who's actually busted, or characters who have crazy redemption arcs. These are known as tropes, and the same thing can be said about gaming. But despite there being some decent ones, there are a few that have absolutely annoyed me over the years, and I can guarantee one of them have annoyed you too. So in this video, I'm going to be going over some tropes that I found aggravating, whilst also linking it to a game I played in the past just to share the experience. And if you have your own ones to share, feel free to comment them down below. And with all that yapping finally out the way, the first one on the list of tropes is one that I genuinely dread every time it pops up in a game, with that being the ever daunting stealth missions. Stealth is the art of being sneaky and crafty, making sure that you manage to avoid most of your surroundings to clear out a section, which are coincidentally things that I absolutely cannot stand. However, when I talk about stealth missions, I don't necessarily mean every single one, as that would be quite ironic seeing as my favourite story mode game is literally The Last of Us. And yes, I love part 2, but that's a conversation for another day. What I mean is the stealth missions where instead of getting caught and having the chance to at least run away and hide, you get caught and get given a game over and have to start again from the beginning. I remember when I played Breath of the Wild for the first time and it was absolutely amazing, but I also remember being stuck on the Yiga clan's hideout because for some damn reason they could ping you from miles away. Or like in the original Spider-Man, where you go from having fun, swinging in the city, to stealthing around with MJ, where if you get caught even once, the game instantly resets. At least they fixed it in Spider-Man 2 though, because it was absolutely jarring. Battling enemies in games are important for many different reasons. They get you to build XP to unlock different abilities, help you to get used to different game mechanics, and essentially give you a dopamine rush every time you see their bodies hit the floor after killing them. Boss battles are even more important, serving as a test to see if you've learned enough about the game to progress to the next section. However, one thing that kinda got on my nerves a lot when fighting these boss battles is how annoying it was when you had to constantly hear them repeating the same voice lines over and over again, especially when the fight is actually quite challenging and you need to lock in. And from my experience, I don't think anyone ticks these boxes as well as Silver the Hedgehog from Sonic 06. Yes, I know I call Sonic 06 a mess in the intro, but it definitely had its moments as a game sometimes. However, one of these moments is definitely not the fight with Silver, as hearing this dude scream, "It's no use!" every time he'd grab you was seriously infuriating. Pair that with the fact that this fight was genuinely quite challenging due to a lot of the mechanics in the game being quite flawed and broken. But I'm sure you guys probably already knew that. It's kinda sad that Silver also fell off after this game though, as he hasn't really appeared in any other Sonic games ever since. Which is a shame, because I really did like his character other than, you know, him screaming every 2 flipping seconds. Next up on the list is arguably one of the more infamous ones that doesn't really annoy me as much nowadays. But when I was about 8, it literally was the death of me when playing a certain game, with the trope I'm referring to being button mashing. Damn near every game in the early 2010s to now have parts where the player has to mash a specific button on and on again to either release a power up or move an obstacle out of the way. And for the most part, I genuinely felt like these segments weren't that bad, especially because they literally take like max 6-7 seconds. It also hits especially when a game enters a flow state and you're hitting all these different combos that make you feel like you're actually there, like in the Dragon Ball Z games or even God of War. However, I've only come to peace with this trope after my fingers started to get a little bit more muscle in them, because oh my days, trying to navigate some of these games as a kid was genuinely like hell. And the only game that comes to mind when I think about this is nothing else but Sonic Colors, specifically on the Nintendo DS. Wow, me and Sonic really didn't get along, huh? Sonic Colors was definitely played more on consoles like the Wii, Xbox or PlayStation. But with me and my childhood console being the DS, it was only natural I got the game on that, and it was truly amazing. I fondly remember getting to the end part of it and fighting Eggman for the first time, and I was absolutely flowing. Eggman ain't seen none of these moves before. And then came the part where he would basically charge up a big beam and basically you had to mash the B button to let Sonic go straight through it. Which I said was like absolute hell. When I tell you, I was stuck on that part for a good 2 months because my thumb would get so tired after constantly mashing for a solid 7 seconds. It also didn't help that the buttons on the DS are click buttons, not the mushy buttons on controllers nowadays, so it genuinely felt like I was pressing on bricks. I remember busting out the maddest victory dance when I finally beat that big ass egg, and I finally laid the game down to rest, where I promise you I have not touched it ever since. And yes, I did not get to play the supersonic part, but who the hell cares? Moving on swiftly, I don't think there's a section in games that people universally hate more than the pesky escort missions, cause oh boy, they can get tedious. AI NPCs genuinely vary when it comes to how useful they are in games. There's Elizabeth from Bioshock Infinite, who always had ammo and health to spare. Dogmeat from the Fallout series being the absolute dog, and then there's Donald Duck from Kingdom Hearts, where the less said about him is probably better for everyone. Unfortunately, most of the time, some of these companions prove absolutely useless when it comes to escort missions, where the player has to guide certain NPCs through an area, with some of these missions even needing the player to find the escortee first before leading them to safety. Now, my problem with this trope isn't particularly the missions in itself, as when they're done right, they can obviously be quite enjoyable, especially when the NPCs actually help you when you're in danger. However, the NPCs who provide no use while trying to save them is who this video is directed at. The Pokemon games tend to set a good example of the former, as they battle aside you whilst you make your way through an area, whilst also healing your Pokemon after a battle. But for the latter, this woman right here was a genuine pain. Princess Ruto might be the main reason I've had no desire to play through Ocarina of Time again, because not only does she provide no help whatsoever, she doesn't even move on her own. You have to physically carry her through her own pet fish's belly until she goes missing trying to find her gem. And if you lost track of her trying to fight off enemies, don't worry, she'll just walk all the way back to the entrance so you can pick her up again. She's probably one of the most annoying characters I've had to endure whilst playing a game, but somehow there's someone even more annoying. Now that you've managed to make it halfway in this video, it's quite clear that you must find me quite entertaining. So if you wouldn't mind, just make sure to drop a like and maybe even a sub for your boy, you know? Please? Pretty please? Anyway, the fifth trope I want to talk about is one that I don't see a lot of people really mention nearly as much as the others, but that may just say a bit more about me. Villains are a staple to any story, as they essentially serve as the catalyst to keep it flowing, usually being on the flawed side of an ideology and going completely against the protagonist's beliefs. In most shows and games aimed at a younger audience, they're made with the sole purpose to be the most hated on screen, and naturally, I fell for it. But as I've grown older, I've come to realize villains are some of the coolest personas you can have in media, and especially in gaming, due to finally being old enough to understand the compelling themes behind them, with characters like Ganondorf, Dutch, Tom Nook, and many others being the reasons for me liking them so much. And yes, I didn't accidentally say Tom Nook, he knows why he's there. However, just like every other trope in this video, there's always that one variant that just doesn't sit right with me, with that one being the villains who just do a bit too much. For example, someone accidentally pushes into them and says, you stink like butt. So to get revenge, they decide to build an organization with their wealth and eradicate everyone who believes they genuinely stink like butt. Like, who the hell is genuinely doing? Oh, you are. Pokemon villains are, in my experience, the best example of this, purely because some of the evil teams in these games genuinely do too much. Like, I get it, it's a fictional RPG game, so it's obviously not meant to be realistic. But Team Magma and Team Aqua wanted to cover the world in either constant land or sea has just never sat right with me. Hey, bars. Or Cyrus wanted to summon the literal devil to create a new world that bends to his liking. Bro, are we dead ass? Again, I know this one might sound like a bit of a reach, and it probably is, but they could at least try to be a bit more like Getsis. I mean, this plan was genuinely top tier. Con a couple people into believing that you're freeing Pokemon, when all in all you want to do is just capture them, and even get your son in on the plan. I mean, that's cool. And I'm not just saying that just because Gen 5 is my favorite generation. Or maybe I am, I don't know. Backtracking is a method that game developers use to make sure that players explore every single part of an area, whether or not they've already visited this place before. For the most part, there's always newfound places to explore whenever there's a section in a game where you have to backtrack, due to it probably being sealed up before or just not having the correct equipment to clear an obstacle out the way. Now me personally, I love when games present backtracking like this because whenever I would go past a blocked entrance, I'd always wonder when I could come back and find out what's inside, like in The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. But of course, this video isn't about what's fun, it's about what can get annoying. And to that I say, games where you have to constantly backtrack between different areas is exactly what's annoying. And yes, I know it just contradicts everything I said about Skyward Sword, but just let me land. Chapter 4 of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door is guilty of having some of the most obnoxious backtracking in a game. And it's even more annoying because some of the things that they make you go back for are completely pointless. For example, right at the beginning of the chapter, you find yourself in Twilight Town, where for some reason the town is turning into pigs? You speak to the mayor to find out the situation of the town before leaving just to be stopped by the guard who won't let you leave without permission from the mayor. So you go back to the mayor's house only to find out that he's also turned into a pig. So then you go back to the guard to tell him that the mayor has turned into a pig, only to find out that, yep, you guessed it, the guard has also turned into a pig. What the hell is in the air these days? From then on, you have to circle between different parts of the town, which ultimately just ends up making you feel like you're in a never-ending goose chase. I mean, come on, I'm playing Mario here, not listening to Post Malone. You get it? Because he sung Circles? Luckily, because of how good this game is, it's quite easy to ignore how much backtracking there truly is. Which is good, because unfortunately, there is a lot. Unironically, since we're already on the topic of barriers and obstacles, I might as well expand on them because there's definitely some things to be said. Developers intentionally place these obstructions and barriers in games to challenge the player and really test their problem solving skills. However, there are actually a difference between the two. Obstacles are mostly disguised with objects that make sense for what area the game is set in, like a bookcase that's been dropped to the floor or a chair that blocks an entrance or an exit. On the other hand, barriers make sure a player doesn't go in an area that they aren't supposed to go in, either by an invisible barrier or intentionally blending it with the background, like doors that were placed for no reason and have no intention to ever open. God, I hate them. Third-person horror games absolutely love these random obstacles because it makes situations in games seem a lot more tense. For instance, when trying to hide from the infected in The Last of Us, there's a good chance you'll probably run around a desk trying to run away from them. Like mentioned in the previous trope, there's sometimes moments when obstacles are put there to block the player from entering an area prematurely. But the way that some of these were placed in games, whilst bearing in mind the context, makes absolutely zero sense. Before the introduction of Pokemon Sun and Moon on the 3DS, HMs were a staple of every Pokemon playthrough, as you needed them to be able to either surf across the seas, climb up walls, or push a boulder out the way. Now these ones actually make sense because not every Pokemon can swim or have the strength to push rocks. But you're seriously not about to tell me my level 25 Charmeleon can't get this stick out the way without knowing cut. I mean, you literally breathe flipping fire, burn it down. Or the occasional games that have you crawling and stretching through the tightest places only to be stopped by this and this. Like bro, just step over it, you're a professional. Step over it. Listen, I know without these paths being blocked, games would be 10 times easier to navigate, which goes against what it's trying to make you do. But at least make it a giant tree or even a picture of 50-year-old Michael Jackson, because then I would 100% know I need to keep my distance. And finally, to end things off, only the most egregious, most aggravating, most cynical of all the tropes possible, one that would genuinely tip me off the edge and still does to this day, the notorious unskippable cutscenes. Yes, you knew it was coming. You see how I said before that I don't think there's a trope everyone hated as much as escort missions? Yeah, I lied, because unskippable cutscenes definitely takes that trophy. They're so annoying that they don't even only apply to games. The amount of times I've had to sit there and listen to my parents yap about something, yikes. Now in all honesty, unskippable cutscenes do have some good in them, as they protect players from potentially accidentally skipping something that may be crucial, especially if it's a first playthrough. However, they start to become a problem when you've already played the game and therefore already watched the cutscene, making it more of a hindrance than it actually being helpful. But even after all that, I still don't think unskippable cutscenes are that bad. Sure, they can be absolutely unbearable, but if I'm replaying a story game where I clearly want to see the cutscenes again, it genuinely doesn't bother me. But there is a crop of games that take the absolute piss when it comes to unskippable cutscenes. The ones that don't let you skip before fighting a boss. Oh my days. Imagine reaching the boss after what was probably a long grind, You watch the cutscene for the first time and get absolutely hyped to finally beat the boss. And then you get whooped. No worries though, all you need to do is press continue and just load back in the Why am I watching this again? Why is it so long? Why can't I skip? The original Kingdom Hearts 1 would make an absolute fool out of you by making you watch every single minute of the boss loading in before finally letting you fight him again. The Trickmaster battle had me gripping my PS2 controller in absolute anger for the amount of times I died and had to watch this dude spawn again. And that was nothing compared to the other cutscenes in the game. I didn't even finish the fight. I got so bored one day of losing, I shut the game off and never played it again. However, in the Kingdom Hearts 1.5 version, you can actually skip cutscenes, but I've already made my bed. I'm not playing that game again. Or am I? And that's it. 8 tropes that I find absolutely annoying. And please, believe me when I tell you, I don't usually complain like this. It's a one-time thing, I promise. I just want to say thank you for watching this video all the way through, as it's my first one ever posted on social media, so be sure to let me know in the comments down below if you had any experiences with the tropes in this video. And feel free to mention some that I didn't cover in this video, because I would absolutely love to read them. And also, if you enjoy first time playthroughs, weird challenge runs, and the occasional stories that'll have you on your seat like this, make sure to subscribe. I've got a couple ideas that I'm really excited to push out that I'm sure you guys will like. But other than that, I'll hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.